You're the best.
All right, Jim, we'll get the cards back in the air. It's going to be 4,080, 12,000, 24,000 lines.
Thanks, Molly. Take the broadcast back here. Great interview with Tim Riley. Get his perspective and get the perspective of a local pro on a lot of these players. A guy who's played with a lot of these people before. That's really useful. And we have updated chip counts. Andrew Dean still at 2.6 million in the one seat. Tony Roberto, 950,000. Good for second place. And a significant second place. He's well ahead of the rest of the pack. So got a big, significant chip lead in first place, and then a fairly significant chip lead in second place as well. And then Brad Yazicki in the 3 seat with 475,000, and raising it up here, first hand back from break, David Stefanski, 550,000, looking to increase that by at least one set of blinds and antes if this works out. And Roberto's thinking about it. Not sure if he wants to give up his big blind here. He has been pretty stubborn and pretty sticky here. He's been playing hands, as we heard in the interview, he's been playing a lot of hands with Andrew Dean, and he's definitely willing to put up a fight, and that's worked for him so far. He's chipped up to 950,000. And he went all in and took down the pot. So his aggression is paying off again and again. We have in the 5 seat Brandon Schambach, who's another poker pro. He's on a 250,000. About 10 big blinds, so he's in push fold mode. And then in the 10 seat Jamie Kaplan, the only person we didn't get a chip count for, but I believe he's around 450,000 now. We'll update your blinds here. $12,000, $24,000 with a 4,000 chip ante. And this is a fantastic structure. One of the ways that we judge structures by, and in fact I wrote a little web app that allowed people to judge the structure of a tournament. And the way that we did it was, how many hours of play does it take before a starting stack is equal to a big blind? And in this case, we've been playing for 3 days and still aren't there. Starting stacks in this tournament were 30,000. Big blind is still only 24,000. So it'll be next level before we even get to that point. 3 days is a long time. This is a really great structure. And when I was at Foxwoods a few months ago and played a couple of the smaller events and did commentary on the PPC Poker Tour event there, I was surprised at how good the structure was. I think we started with 20,000 in chips in 30-minute levels the first day and 40-minute the second day for just a couple $100 buy-in. For this 2,700 buy-in, you've got hour-long blinds today and every possible level. So we are going to be here a while. These players have lots of time to play, use their stacks. Everybody other than Brandon Schambach has a pretty reasonable stack. And Brandon's been playing real tight and solid all day, and obviously hasn't had a lot of hands, but has squeaked his way into to 6th place and may move up a couple more spots, depending on how this all goes down. Everybody else is starting having to be a little extra careful, allowing aggressive players like Roberto to chip up while they wait for the short stacks to go out. And Roberto taking down another pot, raised the button and bet the flop and took it down when David Stefanski folded on the flop. So Roberto probably over $1 million now. The second player to crack $1 million. Nobody else has done that other than Andrew Dean, who's been over $2 million since the start of the final table. Dean seems uninterested in giving up any of that big stack. He is using it wisely and raising some pots, but he's not going crazy. He's not giving away any chips he doesn't have to. He knows that with that many chips, he should get to heads up if he plays solid and doesn't run into any terrible coolers. So there's no reason to take big risks here.
No, I can't.
Dean's raising. And nobody wants to mess with the big stack, although he has to have a little bit of a hand to raise here because he's raising into the guy who's only got 9 big blinds behind his big blind that's posted here. Maybe only 8 big blinds at this point behind it. So if Schambach decides to go all in here, Dean is probably committed to calling. I don't think a player as good as he is would raise a hand that he was going to fold to an all in from 8 or 9 big blinds here. So, and I'm sure Schambach knows that, and if he goes all in, he knows that he's going to be called. So he just calls. Doesn't see a flop. Don't see very many players who will call in this spot, though sometimes it's the right thing to do. We're on a stop and go here, go all in on any flop, or almost any flop. We have a check flop, which has been the theme for the day. These players have been checking the flop and then playing turns and rivers. Schambach checks the turn. And Dean is going to bet at this time. And take it down. Dean's stack continues to grow. All the chips are in that bottom left corner with approaching 3 million in Dean's stack and around 1 million in Roberto's stack. That's about 4 million in that corner of the 5.5 million that are in play. Somebody's going to win 122,000 today by the end of the day. Well, there's a very reasonable chance there will be a chop here. When the money gets that big, even pros that are used to playing for a lot of money will chop that up or chop up part of it. It's 122,000 for first and 78,000 for second. When you're talking about a $45,000 swing from first to second, and two guys who both know how to play well heads up, you're likely to see some chops happen. Another raise from Dean, and he gets called by Yaziki. So we'll see a flop. King 9-4 with 2 diamonds. Not tons of draws out there, but a few. Dean probably remembers that Yaziki called his raise from the small blind with 7-8 of hearts. That was a spot where Dean won a big pot with the jack high flush against the 7-9 of hearts against the 9 high flush. Remembering that Yaziki will call with speculative hands. And he bets and takes it down. That pile in front of Dean just keeps getting bigger. Sometimes it's your day. This could be Dean's day. I'm seeing in the chat that years ago there was a 24-way chop at Foxwoods. That is probably the biggest one I know of. I know that there was a something in the low 20s chop at Rio Daily, either last year or 2 years ago at the World Series of Poker, but I think 24 ways is the largest chop I've ever heard of. I've never been part of a chop more than one table. And we have looks like an all-in on the button. I would assume he's going to go all in if he's going to play a pot. And he gets called. So we have Schambach is all in, and Roberto's called him. Nope, he didn't get called. I was just putting out the blinds early. So Schambach survives another round, takes down a round of blinds and antes there with his all-in from the button. His all-in range should be very wide. And Poker Playa is asking, Schambach is a pro with only one cash from this year. Could be a couple things there. I didn't have a cash yet at this time last year because I was on vacation for a couple months. So it could be that. He's all in from the cutoff here. He may have been tight all day, but I'm sure he knows his push-fold ranges with 8, 9, 10 big blinds. Easy to play a stack that short. So it could be that he hasn't played a lot of tournaments, that he's been busy doing other things, taking some time off, whatever that might be. It could also be that he's a pro, but he mostly plays cash games. I've also gone long streaks in my life with not playing a lot of tournaments, and I've been a guy who does all those things. And it could be a cash grinder. There's definitely a good living to be made in the Foxwoods poker room just playing cash games. Even the 1-2 games were very good, and the 2-5 game was one of the better 2-5 games I've played. There's a lot of money to be made there playing cash, so it could be that he's just a cash player and occasionally plays tournaments. But he did have a fairly significant hidden mob number. I don't remember exactly what it was. I'll have to see. He pulls it off. 4 chips in a row, and he shows it this time that he's got a real hand. You don't need to show it on the 4th one. Everybody knows you've got a hand the 4th time. You might not have anything the first time, but if you shove 4 in a row. Here's Molly with a report.
Just checking in for a really quick second because there's a break in action, and someone had asked to see the trophy on the last break, and I had such an awesome interview with Tim Riley that I completely forgot to show the trophy. So here it is. It's very cool. Championship trophy. It is extremely sharp. It comes in a very nice black, what would it be, velvet? Yeah, velvet box. So here it is. Really beautiful. Every single one of the events actually did get one of these trophies in this series. This is obviously a bigger sized one because it is the main championship event. So one of these 6 remaining players is going to take this home, along with over $122,000 in cash. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Molly. That's what the trophy looks like. I like the crystal trophies. The old bowling trophy style with the pillars and the marble and that stuff. Really hard to take home on a plane. You win a big one of those. But the crystal trophies, not so hard. You can fit those in your luggage, and they look great on a mantle. I have to win a trophy one of these days. We have some action. No surprise, it's Andrew Dean raising the cutoff, and Stefanowski calling the big blind. And a check call from Stefanowski on the flop. Small cards mostly on that flop, and the deuce of clubs didn't hit anybody. Whoever was ahead is still ahead. And they both check the turn, which could indicate just overcards from Andrew Dean. Often that's what that means. You don't usually want to check a pair there. You'd want to bet fold a pair a lot of the time. If you had a hand like ace-5 or 7-8 or something like that. Stefanski will often be betting here, whether he has it or not. he could bet a missed draw, but there's a lot of draws that came in. The 4-6 did come in, and if he has a pair, a hand like a pair of sixes, he could also potentially bet here, although a pair of sixes is more likely to check call and try to induce a bluff. He's unlikely to just have 2 overcards that he would bet here. And I think Dean knows that. I think Dean made the right fold there. Dean probably had overcards himself, and very unlikely that he's going to win the pot in that spot. Well, we haven't added a name to that scroll of payouts in quite some time. But Stefanski just continues to play really well. As Molly predicted, he is one of the best players in the field, one of the best players at the final table, and one of the best players on the East Coast. He really plays well, and his biggest cash was over $300,000 when he ran to the final 2 tables and ended up 16th in the main event at the World Series last year. So the amount of money that's at stake here is not going to stress him out too much if he's used to that. He went all in as you would with a very wide range against the short stack when you're small blind against big blind. So he takes down a set of blinds to go with the pot that he just won. Chipping up must be well over $600,000 now for Stefanski, I think. Not seeing much action from Roberto, which we had been, and not seeing any action from Jamie Kaplan, who's been pretty tight and careful all day. It's tough for him to play a lot of hands with the 2 active big stacks on his left. Jamie is a little crippled, though. If he gets a run of cards, he could win a lot of chips fast with those 2 loose, aggressive big stacks on his left. And we get a raise from Dean and an all-in from Yaziki. Dean's thinking about it, but he's going to fold. There it is. Sometimes you can just tell in their body language when they look at their cards again, the way that they look at their cards again. It's more like, what do I have? It's less like, what do I have here? And more like saying goodbye. Sometimes you can see that look on their face that says, geez, really, I have to fold this? And you know that they've already folded, they just haven't put the cards in yet. Stefanski going to raise the cutoff seat. Not afraid of Dean. He has not been afraid to play hands with Andrew Dean all day. I get the feeling Stefanski's not afraid of anybody. Oh. Bernard Lee's watching our Twitch stream. Thanks, Bernard. I will correct those names. I've been putting the wrong names in there all day. We'll fix that. There we go. Fix it on my sheet for reference. That is Andy Kaplan in the 10th in the 10th seat, or 6th seat in this case. Which might mean I've had information wrong about him as well. Go back and look at these sheets we have each of our players fill out. We're down to 6. We can learn some things about these players too. Andrew Dean in the 1 seat with the big stack. His Twitter handle is Andrew_P_Dean. He's from Massachusetts, professional poker player. His hobbies are drinking. Been there. His favorite players are Matt Salzberg and Bob Kuhn. The strongest part of his game is calling bluffs, and he started with a $50 deposit when he was 16 and has played professionally ever since. That's a good run right there. Two seat is Tony Roberto. Likes any hand he's dealt. He's from Boston. Professional poker player. His favorite players are Foxwoods players, and I really liked Foxwoods players when I was there too. And he is a WPT champion. Not surprising. This is a strong final table. And then Bradley Yaziki in the 3 seat. We learned very little about him. His favorite hand is the winning hand, and his occupation is in between jobs. He has no hobbies and doesn't do anything. I suspect those things aren't true. I suspect his hobbies are keeping it under wraps and not giving away too much information. As we heard about in our interview during the break, the pro that Molly brought in told us that he played with Brad for an hour and couldn't get his name out of him at first. Then we have David Stefanski in the 4 seat. His favorite players are everyone at this final table. He's at Dave Stefanski on Twitter. Hobbies are sports, occupation is poker. And how will you spend your winnings? House. He will buy himself a house. I know some players have done exactly that. It's a nice way to buy a house. The strongest part of his game is getting it in bad and winning. I would take lessons on that. If he will teach me how to do that, I'm in. I've got the get it in bad part. I've done a ton of research on that and learned how to do that. It's the end winning part that's tough for me. And if it does, then that'll be what we get. Alright. Just created a recording file here. That process. So we can make our produced video at the end of this broadcast, and in a few days it'll be up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/blindstraddle, and probably up on the Foxwoods website as well. I imagine they'll want to put it up somewhere, and we'll be happy to give it to them. Back to the action. There hasn't been much. Didn't miss much. On to Brandon Lee Schambach. Could be Schambach or could be Schambach. I'm not sure which. His favorite hands is 10s. Online screen name is Theos1010. He's from Middleburg, occupation poker player, hobbies meditation and yoga, which is pretty much what he's been doing here at the final table, just mostly meditation. He's had his headphones, earbuds in and out, but he's been quiet and still and not played a lot of hands, but survived. Hasn't played a lot of hands, but he hasn't lost any of them, or he'd be out by now. We get a shove all in from under the gun. Andy Kaplan was getting fairly short, so he decided rather than make a raise and have to fold, he just put them all in now. And it looks like that's going to work. Andy Kaplan takes down the blinds. If Brandon Schambach wins, he's going to pay off his mortgage. He's been playing for 13 years, and the strongest part of his game is that he shows up on time. That would be the strongest part of my game if I could do it. I try to when it's certainly for day 2s and for day 3s. If I ever make a day 3, I'll definitely show up on time. 2 Too much money at stake with 13 players left in this. You got to show up on time for that. Schambach is all in again. He's been all in quite a few times all of a sudden since the break. He's turned it up. He's gotten a little too short, and he's got to turn it up and play hands, and he knows it, and it's working. We'll see if it works this time. Roberto raised, and Schambach went all in. Roberto has asked for a count, and now that he knows how much it is, he's thinking about it. Roberto just asked if he had aces, and Schambach shook his head no, and Roberto instantly called. And we'll see just a second here what the hands are. 10-Jack against Ace-Queen. Schambach with the lead, but not a huge lead. We know that doesn't always hold. Ooh, a lot of outs for Schambach to survive, but now he's in trouble. Now he was drawing to just a queen, and the full house for Roberto takes it down. Brandon Schambach, our 6th place finisher. Brandon Schambach from Middleburg. For somebody who didn't really get any hands all day, he sure survived a long time.